It's signing day eve, and we've got plenty of football recruiting news coming your way on a jam-packed, jacked-up Tider Insider TV, which starts right now.
Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Well, it was a birthday bash on Saturday for Rashaan Evans' grandfather, and you'll never guess who showed up. Not only did Gus Malzahn and Kirby Smart show up, but several more coaches from Alabama and Auburn, all at the birthday party together, even breaking it down on the dance floor. From what I understand, the coaches are staying busy wooing the five-star linebacker, and come signing day, it's going to be either Gus, who's very happy, or Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, because Rashaan will announce tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and then sign with the school of his choice. And good evening, everybody. Welcome into Tider Insider TV. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. Our program presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock, proud bottlers of Pepsi Cola products. And Rodney, I had to go diet this week. I mean, I'm letting it get away from me a little bit.
You're letting what get away?
The pounds.
Oh, okay.
Well, they're not getting away. They're coming on. I guess that's a better way of putting it. But that is cold. Check out some great Pepsi products the next time you are at your local grocer. All right, Rodney, I know you've seen a lot of crazy things in your 30-plus years following recruiting, but what about coaching staffs from two different schools at the same birthday party? Even Reuben Foster, the Alabama linebacker, was invited by the Evans family. He was there. That's a little bit crazy.
I just wish I could have been there. I mean, that was an event. I tell you, like you said, Gary, I've been following football recruiting, college football recruiting since 1975. And I mean, I've never heard of anything like that. But I'm sure it was a lot of fun. And I heard that Kirby's a pretty good dancer.
Yeah, he was getting it down. We'll have more on Evans in a moment. But first, a lot of news to get to, and a decommitment is what we're talking about first. Safety Chris Williams of Kingsland, Georgia, took an official visit to Central Florida over the weekend. And today he flips to the Golden Knights. Rodney, what's the story on this one? Is this more Williams wanting to go to UCF or maybe Alabama not showing him the love?
Well, you know, Gary, he made an official visit to Central Florida this past weekend, and there's been some talk for quite a while that Chris Williams may end up somewhere else. I know that his dad's been ill, and, you know, maybe it's an opportunity for him to stay a little bit closer to home. But, you know, I don't think it's any surprise by any means that he is, you know, flipped his commitment. Again, we'll see what he does tomorrow morning, see if he sticks with that.
Yeah, still a lot of intrigue to be played out on National Signing Day. Another piece of recruiting news coming yesterday. This time it's all positive for Alabama. Tight end Ty Flournoy Smith from Georgia Military College picks the Crimson Tide. He played his freshman year for Martin Richt at Georgia, so he's got SEC experience. Rodney, word is Lane Kiffin wanted a tight end in this class, and he gets it in a guy, like I said, that's already played in the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah, he played 8 games as a true freshman at Georgia, Gary, mostly on special teams. This past season, he was limited. He had an ankle injury that required a minor surgery, but in 6 games, he caught 6 passes. 5 went for touchdowns.
So he made them count, and good athlete. Think about he and the young man from Prattville on the O.J. Howard on the field at the same time. That's a lot of athleticism at the tight end.
Sure is, and he's gotten bigger. He's 6'3.5", 248 now is Flournoy Smith. So again, he's getting bigger. Could
be some matchup problems for defenses. And this past weekend, news for the future as well, as 2 more players have decided to join the class of 2015 at Alabama. They were here for the junior day, and they liked what they saw. Dalen Charlotte, a wide receiver out of Patterson, Louisiana, and Big Lester Cotton from Central High School. Let's go ahead and talk Cotton because he's a local product. And, Rodney, this is a young man that is big, athletic, and has had his eye on Alabama for quite some time, and Alabama's had its eye on him for quite some time. So it was kind of a natural that would all come together at junior day.
Yeah, talking to Coach Dennis Conner over at Central High School, Cotton moved in from East St. Louis, Illinois a couple of years ago, Gary, and first thing he told Coach Conner was that his dream was to play for Alabama. Of course, he has ties here to Tuscaloosa from way back, but, you know, he's achieved that goal now in terms of, you know, making the commitment. So he's taken that first step, and he's considered one of the top offensive linemen in the 2015 class. I know that at the Under Armour Combine that they had recently for underclassmen, he put on a dominating performance, and I understand that he did very, very well against Darren Payne from Shades Valley, the great defensive lineman Daron Payne. Up there at Shades Valley, who's considered one of the top players for next year,
and you saw from our video there, walking off without a shirt, over 300 pounds, but carries it very well. And again, he very athletic guy as a as a guard, as a guy that could probably pull, also drive block, just another big offensive lineman for Alabama. You can never get too many of those. Well, good news for the class of 2015. But, Rod, last week we talked about a big three possibly that Alabama was waiting on. Two of those big three already making their decisions since our last Tider Insider TV. One was Marlon Humphrey, who at the end of the day went where we all thought he would go, Alabama. But, not a lot of fanfare for Marlon after having a real high-profile recruitment during a snowmageddon. He just sends out a text and says, hey, I'm going in the Tide.
Yep, he tweeted it out last week, one morning last week, I believe it was Wednesday morning. And again, Gary, huge pickup, obviously, gives Alabama two outstanding corners along with Tony Brown. Both those guys, as we mentioned last week, Brown already running track for Alabama. Marlon will certainly run track as well.
There you see some numbers, and the interesting thing here, he has been officially timed at 4.4. Rodney, he says he ran a 4.28 hand time. And he can fly, he can return kicks and punts, can cover, but he's also a physical player. He's not scared to come up and come up on the run and make some tackles. He's a physical guy.
Yep, he's a well-developed corner, Gary, and I think, again, with Nick Saban here, we talked about this repeatedly. One of the reasons why we felt Marlon Humphrey would choose Alabama is they have the best cornerback coach in the country in Nick Saban. He develops corners for the NFL faster than anybody, and again, with Tony Brown here, that's an outstanding corral in terms of two freshmen in one class. I mean, both those guys rated 5-star players by most of these recruiting services. So, again, you couldn't ask for any better.
All right, Humphrey and Evans, two of those big three. More on Evans in a moment. The other one we talked about last week decided not to come to Alabama. Big Matt Elam, mammoth, 380-pound defensive tackle out of Elizabethtown, Kentucky, decided to go with the home state Wildcats. Rodney, you and I talked about this. Certainly he was intrigued by the championship tradition of Alabama, but give Kentucky credit. They kind of, you hate to use the term savior when it comes to a high school football player, but they were all in with this guy, and they really built him up to be a bigger-than-life player. And, he's going to stay close to home, and you can't really blame him for that.
There's a lot of perception there for them. I think that they needed to get the top player, quote-unquote, in their state, what they considered to be, and, beating Alabama for him certainly brings some, some perception, a win for the Kentucky program at this point. But like we said last week, Gary, it's going to be very difficult because he was being basically begged to come to Kentucky by everybody in the state. So,
all right, good luck to the young man. Alabama's tight on numbers, so when somebody goes somewhere else, it opens up a spot, possibly for the final one of the big three that we talked about. We mentioned him at the beginning of the show, Rashaan Evans. Now, at one time, just a few weeks ago, most people probably would have said, this guy's a lock for Auburn. Rodney, that's not the case at all anymore. Alabama, UCLA still battling too, but Alabama and Auburn look like they could be neck and neck in the race for his signature.
Well, a lot of people, especially if you look at the internet, they want to say Alabama really, they expect him to commit to Auburn, so when he does or if he does, they think that it really isn't a tight race, but it is. I mean, as you mentioned, Gary, I think there's a lot of consideration going on here in terms of Alabama's defensive scheme. We talked about that last week, would use him as an outside linebacker. That's what he wants to play. That's what he feels like his future is in the NFL. He would be given that opportunity to be developed here at Alabama as an outside linebacker. Now at Auburn, they would use him as that star position, which is really a safety / maybe linebacker type, or if he outgrew that position, he would become a pass rushing defensive end, maybe in the mold of D. Ford, maybe a situational guy. So, if he looks at it real closely, I think this is his thinking, is that maybe he's a better fit at Alabama. I'm not saying he is. I'm saying that's part of his thought process.
Exceptional athlete. A lot has been made about the fact that his dad, Allen Evans, actually rated ahead of Bo Jackson coming out of high school, signed as a running back with Auburn. But remember, he didn't play a lot there. He wound up transferring out to Chattanooga, and he's been very open-minded as far as Rashaan making his own choice.
Well, and I think, again, he's looking at his son. He's looking at the opportunities that he has and what's in his best interest. He sees Alabama has not only a great program, but the fit defensively just seems to be better for Rashaan Evans at Alabama. Now, the question is, can he tell Auburn no? That's the big question.
We'll find out tomorrow with much intrigue, that's for sure. All right, we've already covered a lot of ground, but much more to come on our signing day eve Tider Insider TV, including a look at a few more key targets that Alabama has dead in his crosshairs. Plus, A.J. McCarron made some interesting comments on football recruiting. We'll talk about what he had to say and how maybe too many 5-stars impacted Alabama's 2013 season. And coming up, we're welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now. Go ahead and give us a call, send us an email, or contact us on Twitter. We'll be right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock.
War eagle, fly down the field, ever to conquer, never to yield. War eagle, fearless and true, fight on, you orange and blue, go, go, go.
The University of Alabama's SGA president, who cannot.
It might not be the most spirited rendition, but that is SGA president for the University of Alabama, Jimmy Taylor, singing the Auburn fight song. He couldn't get down there last Thursday night for the basketball game because of the weather situation, but he did come by our television station and make a video. Auburn did not have an opportunity, they said, to get that video up on the big screen at halftime of the basketball game, so it became a controversy, but you saw the proof right there. He did sing the song, although he did not make it for the trophy ceremony in person. Well, that Auburn loss and the loss to Oklahoma was on the minds of a lot of people for Alabama the past few weeks, and including the former quarterback A.J. McCarron, who brought up some issues within the team during an interview. McCarron mentioned how several five-star recruits came into the program feeling entitled, and they didn't buy into the process, and that could have led to the team slipping. He also went on to take shots at recruiting sites and analysts, saying you have guys who've never played the game of football rating these guys that they say are five-star because they're sitting behind a computer screen watching their highlight film. Rodney is someone, as we mentioned, that's been doing this for nearly 40 years as far in recruiting. Just your thoughts on what A.J. had to say, and can recruiting too well impact your football team in a negative way?
Well, I mean, I understand exactly. When you have a lot of players, they want to be on the field, a lot of really good players that were highly recruited. They've been told a lot of things during the recruiting process by a lot of these top-notch coaches, and they certainly believe that, they should be on the field. So I can see where, he's coming from on that. Now, as far as the recruiting websites and the ratings and all of those things, again, we don't do ratings on TiderInsider.com, and we feel like that certainly the coaches do the best ratings. I mean, they're the evaluators, but I mean, really, I think the ratings are all in fun, and I do think they get overblown. I think people should not respond to them or overreact to them the way they do, to be honest.
Well, I will say this. I'm with you. I think sometimes they get a little out of whack, but more times than not, the teams that get most of the highly rated recruits are better than the teams that don't. More times than not. There's always examples in each direction, but you want to recruit well, and you want to rank highly in recruiting if you can. Alabama's proof of that, 3 BCS titles since 2009. All right, let's get back to signing day. Only a couple of key targets that are left on the board for the Tide. We've talked about Rashaan Evans. Let's take a look at a couple of other guys that Alabama would like to flip, including Chad Thomas, a defensive end from Miami, Florida. Bryson Allen Williams, the linebacker, has reaffirmed his commitment to South Carolina. But let's talk about Thomas. Interesting case. Looked like he was a lock for Miami. Alabama got in there kind of late. They've given him something to think about.
Well, actually, he came to Alabama's camp this past summer, and shortly after that camp, he committed to Miami. Gary's been committed to them ever since. Alabama's assistant coach Mario Cristobal went down there a few weeks ago trying to get him to take a visit, finally convinced him to do so. Felt like, this is coming from a Booker T. Washington coach down there in Miami. He said that, Coach Cristobal felt like if they got him on campus, they would have an opportunity to show him some things that maybe would create doubt about his commitment to Miami. I think they did an outstanding job when he was here, Gary. Again, the question is, when it comes down to it, can he actually leave Miami, come this far from home? We'll see. I do know that he was highly impressed with Alabama. It's going to be interesting to see what he does in the morning.
Also, Rodney, receiver Malachi Dupree from famed John Curtis High School in River Ridge, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida State, UCLA, LSU, but Alabama probably a long shot in this. Well,
you never really know. Again, I think it's LSU. I think there's a lot of pressure for him to stay in state there at LSU, and I think that's a school that originally he really planned to go to. So, if I had to make a prediction, I'd certainly think it would be LSU.
And don't forget, we have got you covered tomorrow big time on signing day, the Tider Insider TV signing day special live from the Zone inside Bryant-Denny Stadium at the Red Elephant Club meeting from 3:30 to 4:30. During that program, we'll have Nick Saban joining us live from the Mal Moore Athletic Complex, Naylor Stone Media Room for his live press conference. Also in the morning at 9, we've got the Tide TV signing day special, a replay of this program tomorrow at 3. Another viewing of the Nick Saban press conference at 6:30, and of course complete coverage on our newscast as well at 5, 6, and 10. Well, more to come on Tider Insider TV, including one of the highlights of Super Bowl 48, and it's from a guy who hasn't laced up the cleats in 37 years. And next, we're welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen on how you can get in touch with us. Interact with us right now on Twitter. BJ Milliken is checking for that. And there's our email address. The phone number is always 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV.
Joe Namath.
He may be 70 years old, but when you're Broadway Joe, you're not Broadway Joe just when you're 25, Rodney. You're still Broadway Joe. Rocking the fur coat. Now, he did flip the coin too quick. You got to let him call it. But, hey, he is still the man in New York City. Broadway Joe making an impact even after all these years. If you don't believe me, just go to social media. He lit it up on Sunday. All right, time to take some phone calls. They're waiting for us. Let's get started with Steve in Birmingham. Steve, welcome to the program. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, first of all, I enjoy the show.
Thanks.
I have a question about recruiting. I was under the impression you could only sign 25 players, but I was on the Internet the other night, and I saw where Tennessee has something like 34 or 35 commitments. And I was wondering how they could, what the deal was with that.
Well, when it comes to recruiting, rules may not be made to be broken, but they're certainly made to be manipulated and used to a school's advantage. A lot of it has to do with timing, Steve. I know that Tennessee has already signed a number of those guys, and they will not count against this year's total. There's stuff like back counting, and I can't get into all the particulars right now.
Well, a lot of those guys enter school in January, and they had spots open from the year before that they can fill those guys with if they come in January. So that's where a lot of that comes from. So and there may be some of those guys too, Gary. I'm not sure what Tennessee's situation is, but there may be some of those guys that have accepted what you call a gray shirt, where they actually won't enter school until next year.
Yeah, but there's some loopholes there. Tennessee's using it. But at the end of the day, Steve, you can't have more than 85 on scholarship regardless of how many you sign. But, yeah, they're finding ways to get more than 25. They need help. So bringing in 35 is certainly a way to do that. All right, let's go to Anniston and talk with our buddy Harold. Harold, what's going on? Harold, hit me.
Hey, I've been really disappointed in the men's basketball team. Looking at our coach's 5 years, do y'all think he deserves another year?
Oh, I don't know, Harold. That's not for me to say. I mean, somebody else has got to make that decision. I do think that, the basketball is a little bit of a disappointment, but I do think you have to look at big picture. Had no problems, no discipline problems. Guys are going to class. And I know you say, well, that has nothing to do with winning games, but it is part of being a basketball coach. And he's done a great job in all those areas. Now, they're not playing very well. And I don't know if he deserves another year or not. My feeling is, Rodney, that he's going to get another year, regardless of what happens with the rest of the season.
That's my thought. I would certainly expect that he gets another year because, like you said, Gary, he has run a very clean program, and he's done everything the right way. But, again, it's not for us necessarily to evaluate at this point.
Yeah, but we will see, and they play tomorrow night at Arkansas. Next up, a couple of Alabama players who took home another ring on Sunday, plus more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information is posted there on your television screen. So interact with us. Get involved in the program. We want to hear from you. This is Tider Insider TV, and we have got you covered. More on the way right after this. They've already got some championship hardware from their time at Alabama, but on Sunday, Jesse Williams and James Carpenter added Super Bowl rings to their collection. Carpenter started in the game at left guard. Williams was on IR, but still, he got to party with his teammates and get a ring. Congratulations to those guys. The Seahawks beat up on the Broncos, who didn't have any former Alabama players, 43-8. All right, let's get some emails and Twitter questions in. Rodney, let's get right back to it. This is an email coming to us from Charles in Tuscaloosa. Can you tell us what happened to Kenyon Drake in the Auburn and Oklahoma games? We've discussed this quite a bit, Charles, but he played quite a bit early in the Auburn game, then didn't get back in and did not get to play any other than a special teams play or two against Oklahoma. I know there's been a lot of speculation, but let's just say this. Going forward, he's a part of the team. He's going to have an opportunity in the spring, and his absence opened the door for Derrick Henry to have a big game.
I mean, I think they gave Derrick Henry an opportunity because he had worked hard. He had really come around and developed throughout practice, throughout the season, and had great bowl practice. They gave him his opportunity. He produced, and so they kept giving him the opportunity.
All right, thanks for the email, and understand we've got a question coming into us from Twitter. What about O.J. Smith? All right, Rodney, that is a good question. Long-time Alabama defensive line commitment out of Shreveport, Louisiana, but now a lot of speculation that he might sign somewhere else, and from what I understand, will not sign tomorrow with anybody.
Yeah, he possibly won't. Again, he's a top-notch defensive line prospect in high school out of the state of Louisiana, and Gary, what I was told was that, he took an official visit to Mississippi State this past weekend, talking to people at Mississippi State. They felt like that he would sign with them. That was their feeling when he left. And, you know, he came home and there was some talk last night, discussion on the internet that maybe he would stick with Alabama. And again, don't know all the situation, all the circumstances, but right now I would be surprised if he signed with Alabama tomorrow. We'll see what he does as things unfold.
All right, that's the latest on him. And next up on TITV, we'll check in on Alabama's men's basketball team. Can they get back on the right track this week? Plus, Tider Insider Television will give you a live look at the city of Tuscaloosa. It's raining a little bit, but not too bad tonight. Thanks for the phone calls, by the way. We're back after this. Well, it started with Thursday's blowout loss at Auburn and then spilled over into Saturday's home game at Tennessee. Alabama now 3 games under 500 and losing momentum. Anthony Grant knows his team has a tough road ahead, but he's hopeful that better days are ahead.
Compete to win, and when you lose, you're disappointed. But as a competitor, you dust yourself off, you get up, and you keep moving. You know, our vision is to build a program that can compete for championships, and we're not there yet. You know, but we're going to keep working. We're going to keep grinding every single day. I think the guys in the locker room will
Shop in-house or look them up online and get you some of these great locker room shirts and ties as well as their other great menswear. If you want to catch the program anytime, look it up at our website, WVUATV.com. And we'll also have a replay tonight at 10:35 and tomorrow at 3. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. So long, everybody. Good night.